Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Smart Home Collective. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Pierre from Gladys Assistant. Pierre, welcome.
Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Glad to have you on. So before we get started, if you're listening to this the audio version, please subscribe on your audio podcast platform, whether it be Spotify, Google, you name it. Please subscribe. If you're listening to it on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And also, I should probably also say, if you're on Twitter, go and check out Gladys Assistant on Twitter as well, so you can keep up to date with everything Pierre's talking about today. So, Pierre, welcome. So it's like you've created this a privacy first open source home assistant. Do you want to give me a very quick overview, a sales pitch of what Gladys Assistant is? Then we can go into a little bit of background about you and how you created it and your experience with that, and then a little bit more about Gladys itself.
Okay. So about Gladys, Gladys, in a few words, it's a software that lets you control and automate your smart home, like connects some devices together that don't necessarily work together, Zigbee devices, Xiaomi devices, Philips Hue, many kind of devices that you connect together, and then you can build automation to have a smart home and have a better lifestyle, I would say. And so Gladys is privacy first, as everything runs locally on a machine you can run yourself. Could be a Raspberry Pi, could be like a PC you have at home. It's entirely local. And we have a big focus on the UI. We try to make a product like any tech product you use on your everyday life, your phone, Twitter, like any website. So it's very easy to use. Like there's no config file, no command line to run to play with Gladys. It's mostly run and then use the UI in your browser like a normal website. So yeah, big focus on the UI, big focus on the privacy, and there is this assistant part that we try to push. You can talk to Gladys with messages, like you're on your phone on Telegram, and you just send a message to Gladys like, "Hey, show me the camera in the kitchen," and then Gladys would just reply with a picture of the kitchen. So it's really like having someone at home, but it's just a virtual assistant.
Good. Before we get into the detail of it, where did you get the name from?
Oh, so the name is a long story. I don't even remember that was the starting point. But my goal at the time, I was really passionate about Jarvis in Iron Man.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something that sounded a bit like Jarvis. So Gladys was a bit like it. And at the time, I had like a voice, to speak on the speaker at home, and the voice was a feminine voice, so I wanted like a feminine noun, so it was Gladys that came. And there is really no link with Gladys in Portal, and no, it's not really related to
I was
name.
hoping that it was going to be a story about some long lost love.
No.
You developed over this gorgeous lady, but no, it's just a name you come up with.
Yeah, and I think in France we have like a TV show for children, and there is like an assistant, and I think it's called Gladys too. So maybe it came from my little sister, something like that. So
okay, brilliant. So give me a bit of a background then. What was the trigger to come up with the idea of Gladys, and also to develop it, and the background to really why you felt there was a need to create a new open source platform?
So a long time ago, when I was a student, I was an engineering student. It was in 2012, something like that, 13. My parents gave me like a Raspberry Pi, like for my birthday, and I wanted to do something with it, So
that's the rabbit hole right there, Raspberry Pi's rabbit hole.
Yeah, it was the first generation, so it was really the first Raspberry Pi, and I was excited to do something more like connecting things together. And there was some pin on the Raspberry Pi. There still are some pins, and you can just plug like small radio frequency emitter, and you could control some really basic plug. At the time, there was no Zigbee. It was not really popular at the time, so it was really basic tools. And I found online a few tutorials to hack around like some Python code and just like emit a signal and then control a light, a power plug, really basic stuff. And so I started playing with it in my student room, and it was really like futuristic. Like I felt it was already like Jarvis, but with just a few lines of Python code. And I created a blog. The name was Build Your Own Jarvis. So really not related to Gladys at all. And like the first years were really just blogging. There was no software, no Gladys.
Yep.
So it was just me like beginning my life as a student in engineering. So just coding around, doing some basic stuff. And from the time passed and people began asking in the comments like, hey, like, why don't you create like a software that brings all the brick that you describe in all your tutorial
Yep.
and do like something together that could be a real software? So I started working on it, and there was like a first version of Gladys, something like 2014 or 15. It was really basic, really not that great as a software, but it was the first draft, and people loved it. So I had many good feedbacks like, okay, there was some stuff to improve, but it's good. And it was open source from the start. So people started like contributing, bringing new ideas. And yeah, time passed. And more recently, I worked way more on Gladys to bring like a really professional look to Gladys and have this really complete software, like all in one, all integrated and distributed like a real professional software.
So
At the time,
did it start as more an assistant side, and then the smart home stuff came later? Is that, or was it always smart home with the end goal, or did that just evolve naturally?
No, you're right. It was more like an assistant at first, and then it moved to the smart home. So even I think some version there was some obscure like magic automation inside that was not really configurable. Like, for example, Jarvis, you imagine like Jarvis thinks of your first meeting in the morning and calculates the time to go to work and wakes you up at the correct time. And so all these kind of codes, you could do it, but by even not having to ask about it, it was just coded. But it was a nice idea, but in reality, like people like to do their own scenes because everyone has a different life schedule, and it's really impossible to make a model for everyone. But it was more an assistant really than a smart home, and then it moves like more to the smart home side more recently. Yeah.
And how did you make that connection? How did you make that transition to assistant into more smart home? Did you then realize, well, I've got a lot of smart home products that I want to integrate, or was it intentional, or did it just actually start to evolve naturally? Oh, I could bring that into Gladys, or how did that?
Yeah, it was all natural. It was from the start. It was already like connected to some smart home products.
Okay.
But it was really already connected a bit, but there was more like the assistant part. Even the website, if you were going to my website like 5 years ago, it was more like, your personal assistant, and we weren't talking about the smart home part immediately from the start. So it was more on the side. Yeah.
Okay, good. So the starting point then, what was and I forgot the year, apologies. When was the year when actually Gladys became not a sellable product, but a product you're very proud that actually this is more than just friends and family who can look at it? What year was that it became something you could probably mass market slightly?
So it was end of 2020, so really more recently. I released like a Gladys V4, so the fourth version of Gladys, and it was a complete rewrite. So really, like, I took everything I learned during all those years working on smart home things, and I tried to build a product that I was really proud of. So it took me some time. And end of 2020, I released it to the public. Took some time to gain traction, and it was the same name but a complete different software than it was before. So it took some time. My users, they were on the V3 and they stayed on the version 3 for some time. It took maybe a year to transition everyone from the old to the new. And that's where it started to be a real great professional product that anyone could use.
Good. And this, of course, isn't your full-time job. So you doing this whole development creation, you were still having a full-time job, and then you kind of developed Gladys along the way. How did that all play out? And did you start to think, oh, do you know what? Actually, I'd rather do this as my job as opposed to a day job?
Yeah. So when I was a student, in France, we can work and study at the same time. Like during engineering, you could do like 3 years of apprenticeship. And so I did that with a startup, YC startup. And so working for a startup, gave me this sense of entrepreneurship and wanted to build something myself.
Yep.
So after these 3 years, I really wanted to do something for myself, and yeah, I didn't want to go like to a full-time job and just do my normal work. So I split my week in half. I do half the time freelance work for tech companies,
Yep.
and the other half I work for Gladys, and it's been like that for a few years. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so far, so good?
Yeah, so far so good. I love this balance because, yeah, being full-time on Gladys, I would maybe miss a bit like staying connected to the tech world and having like the resources of big companies to try new things, to play with new servers, new stuff. And I can do my stuff on Gladys on a few days per week and do my big stuff for big companies. And yeah, I like mixing the two.
Good. Right, should we get into the meat and the bones then and have a look at what's under the hood?
Yeah, sure.
Let me just add your screen to. Okay, there we go. So apologies for some of the listeners who are only audio only. You might miss it in some of what we're talking about, but the people seeing this on YouTube will now see the main view of Gladys Assistant when Pierre's just shown us a demo. So apologies for the audio people. You'll need to bear with us at times.
Yeah, if you want to see it after, you can go to demo.gladysassistant.com and you will see the exact same thing I'm showing right now. It's just a demo version of Gladys with fake data, so it's not connected to anything. If we touch the button, it won't turn something on at someone's house. It's just a demo. So yeah, here you can see the main screen of Gladys. So it's a dashboard. You can configure it like as you want. We control many kind of devices, and there are many examples on this page. Like the most basic ones are obviously lights, control of power plugs, like to plug pretty much anything, and many sensors. Most of our users, they use a lot of sensor to monitor what's happening in their home. Could be temperature, humidity. Yeah, we can see here water leak, smoke sensor, light sensor, curtain, many stuff in Gladys. And yeah, you can configure the screen with whatever you want. Historical data here of temperature. The presence in Gladys is really important because to me, you want your house to behave differently when there is no one and when there is someone. So in Gladys natively, we have this presence notion. So you enter all the user at your place, and then you can decide how you want to set someone home or not home based on, I don't know, geolocation on his phone. We are compatible with OnTracks. I don't know if you know this software. So you can send your location all the time, and then Gladys with like some scene, just say like here, if you are here, it means you are at home. If you leave this perimeter, it means you are outside. You can use Bluetooth device if you have some, Bluetooth connected keypad.
Yep.
And pretty much
could be watch, phone, anything connected to your home network, GPS. The minute you leave that area,
exactly. We have like network scanning. You can scan the Wi-Fi and see if your phone is connected. There's many ways of, but all those ways they all lead to one native user presence feature that we have in Gladys. And you can see here like Tony's at home, but paper left. And it's actually fun because it's written left 2 years ago, and
I did see that joke.
And it's not really a joke at first; it's just a mistake. Like as it's a demo version, I did a snapshot of one Gladys instance like a long time ago, and the date was fixed. So when I did it, it was written left like 10 minutes ago, and then left 1 day ago, 2 days ago, and then it's left 2 years ago, and people keep like asking like, "Oh, poor Tony, like Pepper left."
I thought the same thing. You're just rubbing salt in the wounds when Tony lost Pepper.
Yeah, but no, it's just a mistake. But I left it like that because it's funny. Yeah, and we can see a camera here. Like there is a big camera feature in Gladys. You can see the camera, like either just a picture, or if you click on the live button, see a live video of what's happening with the audio, everything.
So this kind of grid or kind of layout here, you've got fully customizable. You can rearrange. Obviously, I don't know what the functionalities of the demo, but in a live environment, this is fully customizable. You can have the layout, the grids or the panels as you see fit.
Yeah, and so to configure the screen, there is no HTML involved, no coding. It's really just click and edit. So just there's an edit button here, and then you select whatever you want to display. When you
Okay.
are done, you save, and it's just like that. So really easy to configure. No knowledge of, no technical knowledge to have. Yeah, really
Okay.
simple.
Okay, brilliant.
So this is the main screen. Then I told you like we have a chat feature that's really important in Gladys. So you can ask questions to Gladys about your home, like temperature, like camera image, stuff like that.
And the
And
chat feature, would that be effectively what the original Gladys was? That more assistant side?
yes,
Is that what it was kind of based on?
yeah. So this feature, like it's been there like for a really long time,
Yeah.
even before like ChatGPT was a thing. So we had like a local model running on your machine. Very limited, like the set of question was really restricted to like smart home stuff, but nothing related to, I don't know, Wikipedia questions or
Okay.
stuff like that. But then when ChatGPT went, I built an integration with it, so you could like ask technical or question in general about anything. You are cooking some eggs, you want time to cook your eggs,
Yep.
that kind of stuff. You can ask it to Gladys, and it will be sent to ChatGPT. So yeah, we are building stuff on top of chat all the time.
And is this? Could you do it audio? Could you just click a button and ask Gladys, or does it need to be text?
No, it's just text. Yeah,
Just text.
you could probably like use some third-party software and send the request to Gladys, get the response, and then put it on the
Yeah.
audio. But we have like integration with Google Home and Alexa, and I feel
Okay.
that in the end, like the hardware of those devices are really made to listen to your voice, and it's really hard, I think, to build your own Alexa without like the knowledge of all Alexa engineers.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, for the voice, we use Alexa and Google Home. For those who like those software, nobody forces you to use them. So
No, good. Good.
so yeah, so chat, then integration. Maybe we can talk about that later. I can finish the tour.
Sure.
So calendar, like there is really the idea with Gladys that she's an assistant, so she knows exactly what you're doing. So you can connect your calendar and you can create scenario based on what's happening in your life. So I don't know, like if you want to get a special alarm in your house when you need to go to the swimming pool, I don't know, you can do it in Gladys with that. So she knows exactly what's happening
So you
in your
just
daily life.
integrate Google Calendar, your Outlook calendar, and have
Yeah,
it
yeah.
all within Gladys. Okay.
There is a CalDAV integration, so you could
Yeah.
connect either like Google, Nextcloud, whatever you have. Yeah.
Okay. Super.
The maps feature is really important. I told you, like the presence feature, you can create zones if you enter this zone, if you exit this zone for everyone in the house.
And I've got to ask: is Pepper on that map? Is she completely out of the picture now? Is Pepper somewhere else in the world?
I don't think she's there.
She's gone. Yeah, she's left the world. That's fine.
I could probably put them like completely separate, so it's so the scene part is really like the backbone of every automation. So if you can build pretty much anything with that. You have some triggers and then some actions. It's completely unlimited. You can have like parallel actions, multiple triggers, and sequential action. It's all like
So our scenes effectively the automation part of
yes,
Gladys. Okay.
yes, it's the automation part, and yeah, you can configure whatever you want, and it's all click based. There's no code or no specific format to learn. It's just you add an action, you say, okay, I want to turn on the lights, and then you select the lights, and that's it. It's really simple.
It's very clean looking.
Yeah, it's very, very simple, and then you can move anything. Like it's just very, very easy to configure. So this is for the scene, and I think we are at the end. Then there is all this, the little settings like configuring your home, the users, adjusting the session. Yeah, pretty much it. Yeah.
Super. So from an integrations point of view, I think that's a biggie. I mean, you need the integrations with the third parties and the devices, etc., to really make whatever home assistant you're using as a really good platform. What we got, what's in the horizon, and where things are right now.
So we have many integration, but not everything. If you compare to other software, like we have less integration. I think our biggest one is Zigbee to MQTT. Most
Yep.
users use Zigbee
Yeah,
devices.
I'm one of those people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they are like affordable and work great. So I think it's the best technology right now to automate the home.
Yep.
So this biggest integration is Zigbee to MQTT. We did our approach to Zigbee to MQTT in Gladys, so it's completely configured by Gladys. So when you configure Zigbee to MQTT, you just connect the dongle, save, and then you will just start the Docker container, do all the stuff itself.
Yep.
And you don't have to manage anything. For the upgrade, same, we do everything ourselves in Gladys, and there
Right.
is nothing to configure, it's just all automatic.
So again, it's keeping to that focus of UI only.
Yes. So yeah, it's really UI only, no command line to run, no Mosquito server to understand. It's just click, click, click. And yes, we have over integration as well. I told you all the Alexa, HomeKit, Google Home are here. MQTT is our like more tech integration, I would say, because of course, like we have some users that who still wants to do some scripts or some custom things. They can use like the MQTT integration to just build fake devices in Gladys, like I don't know, like a fake lamp, something like that. And then they will connect this fake device to Node-RED or just a Python script or anything, and it will reflect in Gladys, and they can connect anything with that. So it's and it's maybe the most tech integration in Gladys, because of course you need to understand how MQTT works a bit. So and then you can see many
Broadlink, Z-Wave, OpenAI, Hue.
So Z-Wave we are not compatible right now because we are migrating. There was Open Z-Wave before, that was the standard, and now like Z-Wave JS is the most advanced. So we are migrating, but it's not done yet. A lot of work. So
sure. So how does apologies, Pierre? How does an integration work when you want to bring a new integration in? Do you engage with the whoever it is, or is there just an open API approach? How does an integration normally work?
So it's a good question, because we changed our way of thinking about modules with Gladys before. So before we had like a module system. You could install like third-party apps inside Gladys. So you could like code a little module in JavaScript. So it's all JavaScript. And then you could import like a Git repository, and it will download the code, install the dependency, and run it. But I really didn't like this approach, because we had lots of issues, because when you install like a dependency, like on the computer of the users, something can go wrong, can break, and it can break your whole setup. So it was a huge mess, because we had to deal with like compatibility issues with all modules, and it was impossible to calculate all the possibility. You have module A, B, C, but not D. And it was a huge mess. And so for the version 4, like the approach was having all services, like all integration natively into Gladys. And to add a new module, you just do a pull request on our Git repository. We will work together like to correct all the bugs, test that everything is working. And once we are happy with the result, we merge it and we deploy it with Gladys. So when you install Gladys, it's done. You have nothing more to install. You have like a complete product with everything inside. And if you want to extend it yourself, as I said, like I think the MQTT integration is the best way to do it. You can connect to Node-RED, for example. Many of our users, they use Node-RED as the backend for more like deep integration, but we don't have. And
I need to try and get my head around Node-RED. I've tried so many times, and I just think it looks so painful, so painful.
I think like there is the first 1 hour that is painful, but then when you understood how it works, I think it's super powerful, like to do like really advanced scenario.
Because I also spoke to Matt from the YouTube channel, Not Enough Tech. Matt is a big supporter and proponent of Node-RED, and I've referred to him as the Node-RED now. And I've tried. He's tried to convince a few of us to Node-RED to go down it. And every time I try it, the problem is, Pierre, I don't break through that first hour of pain. I maybe last 15, 20 minutes. Nah, I'm done. Nah, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then I'll go back a couple of months later. I'll give Node-RED a try. 5 minutes. Nah, I can't do it.
I think the only issue with Node-RED is exactly the same issue I described with our previous version of Gladys, is as it's a module system, when you install dependency, sometimes and very often it breaks. Like, for example, there's this serial port module that you can install, to read data from the serial port. It's used for many, I don't know, like integration that connects to USB. And it's a native dependency, and if every single time there is an upgrade, it breaks everything, and all my users just say my Node-RED is broken and I can't use it anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's why I didn't want to do this approach with Gladys, because I was fed up with all the time my software was broken, not because of my work, but just because of dependencies.
Yeah.
And with that completely integrated approach, we distribute a Docker image, and it's all in one. And we know that it works. There is unit tests, many unit tests on the Docker image. And when it's released, we are 100% sure it works for everyone. So
good.
Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah.
Good. Very good. Okay. So what's the kind of the good overview? What's the next steps for Gladys? Where do you see it? What releases have you got scheduled in? Where do you see the next 6 months, 12 months with Gladys, and what do you want to how do you want to grow it, and what do you want to do with it?
Yeah, so right now we are working, we are trying to add as much compatibility as possible. I told you we are working on Z-Wave, bringing back Z-Wave, improving the Zigbee to MQTT integration. So right now we launch the Docker container ourselves, but some users, they use competitors like Home Assistant, OpenHub, and they want to try Gladys, but they already have like a Zigbee to MQTT running.
Yep.
So maybe they just want to try our UI by plugging into like their system, not changing anything, just connecting the MQTT broker, and then seeing if Gladys is better. If it's better, they move. But they want to try. So I want to add like some small stuff, like connecting external broker like to Gladys, just so more users can try Gladys and see if they like it, and have more feedbacks. So that's
a good segue, and I know kind of on the agenda we're going to cover a section of communication questions, which we'll come on to most of them later. But since you've touched on that, one of the questions we did get in was, I'll rephrase it. So it's more the question was, why did you start Gladys when platforms like OpenHub, Home Assistant, Node-RED already did functionality? But I think I'll probably rephrase the question to, if you're already using the likes of OpenHub and Home Assistant, what would be the appeal to come over to Gladys and start to tap into some of that user base? Or is the user base, and I'll give you a double-barreled question, Pierre, apologies, or is this the second question is the user base for those people who are not using Home Assistant or not using OpenHub, and that's the ones you want to track because it's very much Open UI first? What's the... I can rephrase that. I was quite long-winded in the end, apologies.
So I think that when you build a software, you make tons of choices every day for every single feature. Like, do I build it like this, like that? And on Gladys, we do many choices related to UI, simplicity of use, and building something that's open with an opinion, strong opinion.
Yep.
So it's not really like, we don't build a software for everyone with tons of options. It's just we build what we think is the best, and then someone will like it, someone will not like it. So I think it's a different approach. It's close to what Home Assistant or OpenHub are doing. It's a smart home software, but with lots of different choices, like on the tech side, on the UI side. And I think some will like it, some will not like it. It's like iPhone and Android. Like, it's two great softwares, but different choices.
And don't get me wrong, I think it's fantastic. I mean, when we spoke previously, I'm a Home Assistant user, but seeing another platform in this space is exciting because you want more, you want competition, you almost, if you have no competition, it gets stagnated and stale. The more players in the market, they push one another. So I think having Gladys alongside Home Assistant, OpenHub, whatever it may be, is really exciting because you want more people in this space to really push what's possible. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and also like, so Home Assistant is based on Python. OpenHub, I think it's based on Java, and I think so. I'm not sure, but I think OpenHub is Java. and Gladys is JavaScript, so it's 3 different language, 3 different platform. So it means like if you are a developer and you're more on JavaScript side, you can contribute to Gladys. If you are more on Python side, you go to Assistant. I think it's good that we have different language,
Absolutely.
like building like different platform, and so we are not we don't have one open source software, and I think it's good.
100%. I mean, I started with my smart home journey trying to get into the open source stuff was OpenHub, and I had a horrible time. And I ditched OpenHub and moved to Home Assistant, and it's been great ever since. So you will have people who trying Home Assistant don't like it and want something new. Gladys could be it. On OpenHub, Gladys could be it. So I think, as I said, having more players in this space is actually really, really healthy and exciting.
And I think compared to Home Assistant, maybe it's changing a bit, but Home Assistant was config file first for a time. Now it's moving to more UI, but still, like when you look at some chats online, people always like share some HTML files, CSS files, some stuff like that. We really don't have that in Gladys. It's not even possible. So it's a completely different approach. Like if you like to configure everything yourself with small details, it's not possible in Gladys. But if you want just a software with just a few clicks and it works, maybe Gladys is more for you. So
more for you. Good. No, that's really, really good. Okay, excellent. So what's your release schedule like? Is it monthly, quarterly, or is it just as and when?
So it's very often. We release really often. Like it could be, I work every week on Gladys, and I think every week that I work on Gladys, there is a release. So I would say once a week.
Wow, okay.
So at least once a week, I try to do not more because it's painful to have like too many releases for users just to follow what's happening. It's hard. So I try to do like one per week. But when I'm in holiday, there is no release. So yeah. But I would say on average.
How dare you have holidays, Pierre?
I think last year we did like 50 release, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe less, maybe 20. I think I wrote it somewhere, but I think it was between 30 and 50, something like that. So
wow.
Yeah, many releases.
Exciting. That's exciting. So at the moment, the view is just continuing to expand integrations and just building on what's existing there.
Yeah, so expanding integration, and we have many requests for features like on the dashboard, on the scenario part. And we try to build everything that users are asking. We have like an online forum where people can ask for feature and votes. So just follow the votes, and if there are many votes, I just develop the feature if it makes sense. And that's how it works. It's all community based, so we have like GitHub forum, people exchange, and then I see what's the big topic at the moment, and I just follow the trend. So it changes very often when there is a new kind of device, new protocol, for example, Matter coming already there. And those could be the topics of the next month.
Interesting. So on the topic of Matter, then, are you, with Matter being released now, do you have to develop Gladys with that in your mind now that there's a new?
So I think to me, Matter is a huge opportunity for this market. I think it will it's an advantage, I think, for Gladys, and a disadvantage for big players like Home Assistant, because big players, they have compatibility with everything because they have many users, many developers, and so they built such a marketplace of integration that it's very hard to compete on this subject, because we won't have like as many integration as Home Assistant next year. Like it's really, really complicated. But with Matter coming, like maybe in a few years, it will be like Wi-Fi. Like there is no question if you use Wi-Fi or if you use another technology for your laptop, it's just Wi-Fi. And maybe in a few years, it will be just Threads, Matter, and that's it. I don't know, maybe not, but maybe it will be the case. And in that case, it means integration in Gladys won't exist anymore. There would just be Matter inside. And our native approach will be the right choice because there is no module anymore, just Matter, for example. And then the difference on the software will just be on the UI. And I think we are good at UI, so I think it's a good thing for us in the future. So yes, I think I'm excited for Matter. And I think it will shuffle the deck again about what's happening. We'll see.
So one of the a question I got this twice, and I've tried to phrase it in my own way. So whenever I'm talking about my personal experience, and when I started with Home Assistant, Raspberry Pi. Everybody starts with Raspberry Pi, SD card. It's so affordable. It was so affordable, so easy to get one, so easy to get up and running. Given we live in a world where Raspberry Pis are impossible to get a hold of, and exuberant prices now that on eBay, what's the easiest way to get started in Gladys? So you get somebody now they bought their new house, they want to get kicked off in smart home world, and they want to get kicked in Gladys. Is Raspberry Pi the right route for Gladys, or would you recommend something else to get set up?
So I would say the one advantages of the Raspberry Pi is that the installation process end to end doesn't need command line, because you have like the Raspberry Pi imager software. You clone the SD card, and I have like a Gladys image built in. You just clone it on the SD card, you plug, and then it works.
Yeah.
So even the Wi-Fi, now you can configure the Wi-Fi directly on the imager, so it's really easy. So I think that's the big advantages of the Raspberry Pi. But then, like on the long run, you run into some issues, like with the SD card being corrupt all the time. With, I don't know, like you unplug it, it breaks the files, the software. So on the long run, like for a beginner, it's hard to recommend the Raspberry Pi. I feel that it's weird that they didn't move to having like integrated memory on the Raspberry Pi, like MMC or SSD. I don't know why they didn't do it. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I think they did it on the enterprise version, the small, the small module, not the full Raspberry Pi.
The compute module.
Yeah, I think the compute module has some storage, but it's weird that they didn't bring the storage to the normal one.
Yeah.
So right now, I think I recommend to my users to use a mini PC.
Okay.
For example, B-Link, that kind of brand. And I think those are the most stable options, because you have like good SSD, good RAM, good CPU, and it lasts forever. It makes no noise, low power consumption.
You can pick up a refurbished one relatively inexpensive now.
Yeah.
I recently just moved to a NUC. I started with the Raspberry Pi, then I moved to the Odroid N2 Plus. Horrendous. It didn't work for me. It didn't work with my network. I don't know what the issue was. And only the last month or so, I've moved into last couple of weeks actually. I've moved to a NUC because it was cheaper than a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, why did I not go to a NUC sooner? The performance is through the roof. I got an i5 NUC for like 60 quid off eBay. It was dirt cheap. So personally, now my recommendation for people is that if you can get up and running on a mini PC, I think it's the way to go at the moment, given the limited of the single board computers.
Yeah, and there are many promotions on Amazon, sometimes even on new ones. Like B-Link, for example, this brand do many promotions sometimes, and you can get like 500 gigabytes of disk, like huge 4-core CPU, RAM, say 16 gigabytes for like 150, something like that, in brand new. And if you want the refurbished one, it's like 90. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy cheap. Yeah.
It's a great time at the moment to pick up mini PCs, because for some reason the refurb market seems to be very, very cheap.
Yes, so that's what I recommend. And if you have a NAS at home, maybe just use your NAS. It's a good option too.
Yep.
So mini PC.
Good. Okay. Last question. I'm slowly coming to the end of my questions and agenda here, Pierre. Last question. What's your all-time favorite smart home device? If you could only pick one and keep it for the rest of your life, what would? And I'll bend it slightly. Best smart home device or best smart home automation? You can only pick one.
So device, I have there is one device that's to me a bit magic and really fun. It's this small Xiaomi Cube.
Yep.
And you can build automation based on whether you rotate it or just flip the side, shuffle it. Like there is 10 different actions.
Yeah.
And it's just such a magic object. You put it anywhere and just rotate it and it does something. I think it's amazing. Like it's really magic. So I would pick this one.
Okay, Pierre, for the record, Pierre picks the Cube. Probably my most hated device is the Cube. I spoke about this in one of the earlier podcast episodes. I got a Cube once thinking, this is fantastic. And as you said, you can spin it, rotate it, twite it. We had lights, disco lights going in the house. alarms going off. People were just picking this up and shaking it and tapping it, and it was a disaster. It just didn't. And then I would forget, is the right turn to do something? Is it a tap? It was just, I think the concept's great.
Yeah.
I probably overloaded it with the number of functions, trying to cram everything into it, and it was a disaster. I just, yeah. I can see where you're coming from.
I have a fun story about that. Like I had when I was student, I was living like in a apartment with like 3 other people, and we had like so it was all smart in the house I was working on Gladys.
Yep.
And I had like a small Xiaomi button, just a button, and I built the romantic mode. And so the romantic
Everybody
mode,
does it. Everybody does it.
And so it had like Philips Hue lights dimmed to like red lights in the living room, and you had some George Michael out of the Sonos speaker like in the living room, and like the saxophone version. And then the issue is that the button, so it was working, you press the button, you have George Michael, it's nice, okay. It was like on the kitchen table, no, not on the living room table, there was a button. You just go for food with your plate, you hit the button by mistake, and then boom, it's George Michael. And I said, and then so I had to code the cancel romantic mode action, that was double press on the button to just go back to normal, because otherwise we had to wait for the music to end.
And the thing is, if that button gets hit and you're in the room and yourself, people start to wonder, Pierre's romantic mood on his own, can I leave private time? Oh, superb.
And even I made at the time I made a video, it's on my YouTube channel, Gladys Assistant. It was the romantic mode with Gladys, and the Raspberry Pi Foundation, they retweeted it, they reposted it on their blog, they did a whole article about this romantic mode. You can look on, I think it was 2017, something like that.
I'll put a link in the comments in the YouTube channel that as well. Super, brilliant. Okay, Pierre, that's kind of ran through what I wanted to cover today. On a finishing note, if you're trying to kind of the final sales pitch or promotional pitch for people to go and check out Gladys, what would you say to them, and where can they go?
Just come to our website or blog, and our forum if you want to talk about it. Just try Gladys. It takes 2 minutes. There's just one Docker image. If you know Docker, you can run Gladys. If you don't know Docker, you can clone a Raspberry Pi image to Raspberry Pi, and it just works. And really just try. Like, even if you don't want to break your current smart home setup, just run it in a VM anywhere. It just run in 5 minutes. And try it. And if you have feedbacks, don't hesitate. We answer to feedbacks. We fix bugs very fast. Like recently, there were some bugs, and it was literally fixed the same day. So we are really fast with the releases. We have like a completely automated process for releases. So it's just pull request, merge, build a version, like just a click in GitHub, and then it's published as Docker image. So it's really fast. So that's why we are really agile with our development process. So just join. If you want to contribute, like we have like a GitHub with all the instructions, like how to contribute. We have simple pull request templates. It's just very easy, and we are always welcome to new contributors.
Good. So that's GladysAssistant.com.
Yes.
And I'll put a link to the website, your Twitter handle as well, and your YouTube channel, Pierre, so people can check it out. Super. Right, everybody, that's the end of the episode. As I said at the beginning, if you enjoyed this episode, let's have a gentleman's agreement. I'll give the episodes, you give me a like and a thumbs up and a subscribe, and we'll keep this going. So I hope everybody had enjoyed this episode and learned a little bit more about Gladys. Brilliant. Thanks, Pierre.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Take care.